Number 10. Steve Jobs was adopted. His father, Abdul Fattah Jandali, moved from Syria to the United States in the 1950s to go to college. There, he met and started dating Joanne Carol Seibel, Jobs' mother. Seibel's father didn't approve of Jandali, so the couple put their baby boy, Steve Jobs, up for adoption. The young couple agreed to give their son to the Jobs family, under the condition that they promised to give him a university education. Steve Jobs isn't the only successful child that Jandali and Seibel had. Their daughter, Jobs' sister, Mona Simpson, is a famous author. Number 9. The founders of Google originally wanted Apple's Steve Jobs as their CEO. At the time, Apple was far superior to Google, but Jobs saw that the young company had a great deal of potential, so he agreed to act as a mentor for its creators, Sergey Brin and Larry Page. He even chose to share some of his advisors with the two Google founders. Jobs even took Eric Schmidt, the company's eventual CEO choice, as one of his board members at Apple. None of these decisions posed much of a problem, until the two tech giants later became direct competitors in the various areas of the hardware realm, with such devices as the Android phone. Jobs saw these moves as a direct threat to his own company and felt betrayed by his former apprentices, saying Apple didn't enter the search business, so why did Google get into the phone business? He believed that they had stolen some of the features of the iPhone and decided to keep the development of the iPad a secret from Schmidt. Number 8. All Macintosh computers were autographed. Stories say when the Macintosh was complete, there was a big party at Steve Jobs' place. He made the team that worked on the machine sign a piece of paper. The piece of paper became the model for a metal plate that would go inside every Macintosh computer. It's kind of a strange thing to sign the inside of a computer, especially one that was not really user serviceable. So why did Steve Jobs want to have the entire team sign it? In a word, art. For Jobs, the original Macintosh was not just a computer, it was a piece of art. It was the first mainstream computer to have a graphical user interface, and the team had employed a number of people who had artistic qualities as well as technical ones. As all great artists signed their work, Jobs thought so should the Mac team sign the piece of art computer they had made. Number 7. Steve Jobs had an annual salary of $1 for over a decade. This may seem like a noble if not crazy gesture at first glance, but don't worry, Steve was still making out quite well in the end. As Apple's largest shareholder with 5.5 million shares of their common stock, his total personal assets were worth around $1.84 billion. He also received another $248,000 per year for lending out his private plane for business usage. This is not to mention the fact that Jobs was also the majority shareholder in terms of Disney stock from when he sold them Pixar. Because he doesn't take the salary of a real CEO, he also paid less in taxes on the dividends earned from this Disney stock. Number 6. He drove his car without the license plate for years. Steve Jobs was always known for his signature image of a black turtleneck, sneakers and blue denim pants. What fewer people relate with him though is the silver Mercedes SL55 AMG he always drove, and the fact that it never had a license plate on it. He was also never fined by the police for it. So how did he get away with it? It's all because of a loophole in the California vehicle laws. Anyone in California has a maximum of 6 months after the issuing of a plate to put a license plate on the new car. All Jobs did was change cars every 6 months to an identical new model, so that he could keep the plates off. Number 5. He was fired from Apple. Steve persuaded Pepsi president John Scully to become Apple's CEO in 1983 by telling him, "Do you want to sell sugared water all your life or do you want to change the world?" The irony is that John Scully later fired Steve Jobs from Apple in 1985, but Steve Jobs claimed that being fired was the best thing that ever happened to him because it led to the most creative period of his life. Number 4. He owned Pixar. During Jobs' time away from Apple Computer, he was a busybody. He started a brand new computer company called Next and bought a small but soon to be large animation studio called Pixar. Pixar later went on to strike a game-changing deal with Walt Disney and created the legendary Toy Story, on which Steve Jobs was executive producer. Next was eventually bought by Apple and Jobs returned to Apple in 1996. Number 3. His father was one of the biggest inspirations. Steve Jobs' father taught him the importance of paying attention to detail. Paul Jobs was a mechanic and a craftsman, and he often rebuilt cars on his weekends. He gave Steve his own small workbench when he was about 5 or 6 years old. Number 2. He once gave his secretary a Jaguar for being late. A secretary once told Steve Jobs that she was late for work because her car wouldn't start. That afternoon, Jobs threw her a set of keys for a brand new Jaguar, saying, "Here, don't be late anymore." Number 1. He turned down a liver transplant from Tim Cook. Steve Jobs turned down a partial liver transplant from now Apple CEO Tim Cook 2 years before he died of cancer. The biography Becoming Steve Jobs claims that Cook offered part of his liver to Jobs in 2009 after learning that he had the same rare blood type as his boss and could grow back the liver cells. Jobs didn't even entertain the thought. Cook recalls the incident by saying, "He cut me off at the legs, almost before the words were out of my mouth. No," he said, "I'll never let you do that. I'll never do that."